Hey folks, welcome back to the farm. We're going to discuss some wives' tales, you might say, about canning in this video. We recently came across them on the internet, so stick around, we'll go over some of this stuff. So one of my subscribers on a recent poll recommended a channel to me, the Appalachian Homestead. We went and checked them out. It's a pretty good channel. They've got a lot of good content on there. But I ran across this video right here, and there was some information in it that made me go, So watching that video, there was a few points that she made about things that cause botulism in your jars that really didn't make sense to me. And let's look at some of the stuff that I've done. We'll cover some of those points that she made, and we'll try to discuss what goes on with this stuff. Here's my garden fresh tomatoes that we just canned this morning. They came out beautifully. Let's head down to the root cellar and we can go over a few things that we do down there. Now, the most important thing you can do when canning is sterilization and keeping everything nice and clean. You'll be the most successful canner that you can be if you practice good cleaning practices and make sure everything's nice and sterile and can things for the proper duration and all that. That's the most important thing. So here's our root cellar here. Got all our empty jars up on top. We can a lot of stuff. Kelly does a lot of freeze drying this year, so she's got a lot of freeze dried food in here as well. Well, let's get back to what was being said in that video. Now, she showed a jar of her tomatoes that had mold and stuff up in the top of the jar, and she's using it as an example what can happen if you leave the rings on or if you stack your jars, where she didn't give any evidence of why that was done with her jar. There was obviously no ring on the jar when she showed it, and it had not been stacked because it was a quart jar. You don't want to stack quart jars because they just really don't stack together and it would be really tipsy. You don't want to do that. But there are jars that you can stack just fine. These jars, they're tapered on the bottom so they fit real nicely together. And a very well sealed jar, like say this one here, is sealed really well. You can pick it up by the lid. It doesn't come off. These jars are designed to show you when there's no seal. They pop up and down, and this is sucked down tight. It doesn't move up and down. And her jar that she showed was obviously popped up. It wasn't sealed down. Now, we do both down here in our pantry. We leave the rings on some jars. We take the rings off of some jars because anything like this jelly, this isn't just a one-time use. Well, when we open this jelly, it's going to go in the fridge and we're going to use it and refrigerate it. So we leave a ring on here so we can close it back in the fridge. We do take the rings off after canning and clean them up and dry them. So you can see there's no rust inside of our ring. This one is getting old though, but the inside is nice and clean. So we leave those on. Now the stuff that we use just one time, open it up and use it all, we take the rings off. But stacking these jars, like if we were to stack these two jars, if a jar is sealed down tight, adding more pressure down on that jar is not going to loosen your seal. It's actually going to push it down tighter. So it's not going to hurt it. Now, she claims if you put a piece of cardboard or a box or something on top, you can stack your jars. Well, that didn't make sense to me either, because if you put a piece of cardboard up here and you put the same amount of jars, you're going to have the same weight pressing down on your lid. So that really doesn't hold water for me either. So it just really didn't make sense to me, and I wanted to show you guys. It basically boils down to if you've done it and it works for you, that's fine. We've never had a problem with jars coming open down here. If you do find one, when you go to open it, you're always going to check, make sure that it's still sealed down like that. And we have to use a tool usually to pop that lid off. If it just kind of falls right off, you know it's not sealed. The other telltale sign is if you get mold in the jar, or you didn't seal and it smells funny to you, don't eat it. That's the biggest thing. If it looks bad in here, if you've got mold all over the top, obviously don't eat that. That's the biggest thing. And she had mold in her jar. So it was a telltale sign. She said botulism is a silent killer. Well, you can't hold one of these jars up to your ear and hear anything anyway, so I don't know why it'd be a silent killer. There's always signs of spoiled food. It's either a bad color, or it's got mold, or the lid is popped up. There's obvious signs of that. Now, looking at the ball canning procedures and stuff like that online, there's nothing saying you can't stack jars. You can even stack jars in the canner if there's room, if you're water bathing or pressure canning. With smaller jars, you can stack jars in your canner. There's usually a wire rack in there, but it's still putting pressure down on the lid when you're canning. So take it with a grain of salt, folks. Now in this video, she also talks about a false seal. And leaving the rings on or stacking a jar on top can give you a false seal, which I don't think that's so much true either. The only time I've ever seen a false seal is when you're just done canning, like we did with our tomatoes here. You'll get enough vacuum to draw that lid down as the contents cool in there, and it'll actually feel like it's sealed. But as it sits over time, if you've got some debris or something, if your lid was dirty, and it allows that seal to break, that was a false seal. You initially thought it was sealed, but it really wasn't, because you had something in the way. Another thing that can cause what she says is a false seal is your headspace in your jar not being enough. Headspace meaning the area between the top of the contents in the jar to the very top of the jar. You need to leave an air gap in here. And the reason for that air gap is liquid cannot compress or develop a vacuum. Only air can. So you need to leave airspace in here so when this jar cools down and things contract, it draws that lid down with that vacuum of air that's under here. If it's full all the way to the rim, or even part way to the rim, there's not enough air in here to create a vacuum, and it'll initially feel like it's sealed, but it doesn't have a good enough vacuum and it can let go. And that would be another reason for a false seal. So always make sure you have the recommended headspace in your jar. I usually fill, no matter, even if it says a 1/4 inch headspace, I only go to this ring right here, or when I have my funnel in, the bottom of the funnel lines right up with that. So as I'm filling my jars, when I come up to touch the bottom of that funnel, I know I'm full. So I'll leave that headspace in everything that I do. So I hope this video clears up any misconceptions there may be about canning safety. Go check out Appalachian Homestead channel. She's got some good content on there. And we hope you come back to Markelly Farms as also. We have lots of homesteading content. We've got lots of playlists with fantastic family heirloom recipes. We've got canning, we've got meat processing, all different playlists. So you only have to watch what you're interested in. Shop projects, gardening, all that stuff. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Come back and see us soon.